So here's my calling progression from the beginning to the middle to the end of our whitetail season here in upstate New York. Our season starts October 1st in my area, and what my partner Andy and I have gotten to witness at nighttime, just absolutely amazing. When we're out predator hunting and we're targeting coyotes, we're also scouting for deer. Like inadvertently we're targeting coyotes, but we get to watch deer behavior, deer interactions, and what they're actually doing at nighttime when the lights go out. And it was absolutely mind-blowing when we started going out in the field targeting coyotes, and we're watching coyotes doing coyote things, but the amount of deer that we're actually seeing early season. And when I say early season, I mean we're whitetail hunting archery stand October 1st and coyote hunting that night, same night, October 1st and the first week of October. We see plenty of just bucks tickling antlers, juvenile bucks, mature bucks. What we were really mind blown at what we watched was how many mature bucks we were actually seeing at nighttime, horn locked, just locked up antlers, postured, and you can hear from a distance, you can hear the rattling, and we're watching it through our thermal of just horn locked bucks October 1st. So this is a big thing to look at. You know, everybody wants to hunt the rut, big action, lots of vocals. Yeah, absolutely amazing time. But looking at the breeding cycle of whitetail deer, it's a bell curve. There's a little bit and a lot more. You hit the apex of what we call the rut, and then there's a downhill trickle cycle effect. So it's my form of how do I want to vocally communicate with that deer to increase my chances of success with what's actually happening on a seasonal progression in the stage of that animal. So I need to remember I'm talking to one, not the whole entire population of deer. So I'm not talking about an isolated incident that I watched happen one time in the field. This is based on watching something happening multiple times. You gather statistical validity with what you're seeing is a thing that happens, not an isolated incident. So applying this to my calling techniques here in New York, early season, I am not taking antlers and hammering them together. We see it a lot at night, and we were actually really surprised how often we saw this at nighttime. Daytime interactions though, it's a lot more lots of rubbing and some clicking. Juvenile bucks doing juvenile buck things, just sparring, little clicks, incorporating that into my grunt tube. Bucks doing buck things. That's what I want to try to vocally communicate. You also have bachelor groups of bucks still that haven't broken off, and you have all of those family groups of doe. Then this is really important for me. If I don't have that mature target buck to go after, I love hunting whitetail doe. I have a lot of fun doing it. It defines conservation, carrying capacity. Too many chefs in the kitchen, not enough food. We shoot a bunch of doe every single year. Early season doe hunts, I vocally communicate as that family group. Early season doe hunts are this one of two times where I hear the most doe vocalizations. Your juvenile fawns that are basically playing, screwing around, making those audible fawn sounds, those real short, quick, high-pitched vocal bleats, blats, and mom yelling at the kids to knock it the hell off because they're a prey animal and she's trying to teach the kids. That's the most often time I hear doe vocalizations early season, and then also late season. Very similar dynamic of family groups. So you have the establishment of family doe groups early season. I'm going to communicate to that. If I'm doe hunting, I typically stick with doe sounds. If I do have a target buck on a property, I am not going to take those antlers and start hammering them together. If that buck is not on the property, I'm typically hunting doe family groups at that point because we're at a time of year where that buck from another adjacent property just hasn't shown up yet. It's going to happen, but that's not the time to do it. Tickling antlers early season, soft grunts, contact grunts, nothing audibly aggressive, and communicating to doe family groups. Very inviting sounds early season. Now, one thing I personally really look for, I remember when my kids were little, I used to take 2 lollipops, we'd hop in my truck, and we would go for a drive. And the first kid that sees a deer gets a lollipop. So what I'm actually looking for are not just properties I hunt on, but adjacent properties. What I'm looking for are those wandering fawns that are just oblivious and clueless to their surroundings. That time of year, as October is starting to get closer into November, when we have that dispersal of mom and dad basically running the kids out of the bedroom, and you have that wandering fawn that's oblivious to its surroundings, it just got booted from a family group, and mom and dad are doing something, they don't want the kids in the bedroom, and that fawn is just wandering. So even if it's not on my property that I'm hunting on, if it's in my general vicinity, if it's in my area, if I see one wandering fawn out in an ag field, eating, on high alert, it doesn't mean anything. It means absolutely nothing because there's too many variables. Mom could have gotten shot by a hunter, mom could have gotten hit by a car, or mom and dad ran the kids out of the bedroom so mom and dad can do mom and dad things. Variables. If I see another adjacent property, if I see another fawn out in a field, if I have multiple fawns within one area, that says a lot to me. When that switch starts to flip in the dynamic of deer behavior that time of year in one particular area, it doesn't apply everywhere. And this is something you can do from your truck. This is something you can do driving down the road and just be observant to those things. And it's zero woods time. I'm not looking for rubs. I'm not looking for scrapes, just windshield time behind the road. That's one thing I really key in on that time of year, looking for those fawns. That is going to be a catalyst for me flipping my switch from soft calling, doe vocalizations, contact grunts, into I'm really going to start picking up my volume and taking the antlers and competition, dominance, all of those things that I'm trying to portray into the woods to get that buck. Incorporating that with less doe vocals, a lot more grunts. One of my best videos was the clicks. This is really where I start incorporating those clicks to associate the fact that I'm not just a buck, but I'm with a doe, and there's a high probability of breeding. Incorporating those clicks into that grunting sequence before or after rattling. Sound projection. So no matter how long your calling sequence of rattling before or after you're grunting, this is my grunt tube. Find it at rushcustomcallers.com. Find the link in the description. So when you're calling, you don't want to sound stationary. Project your sound on the move. Typically, I'll start on my downwind side and I'll project my sound to my upwind side. So it sounds like I have a direction of travel. Optimistically, my last sound was the direction of travel, and optimistically, that buck hears where he last heard that sound coming from. If I have to blind pick which direction I'm traveling, I'm always traveling upwind. I don't want to sound like I'm traveling downwind and potentially put a target deer to my downwind when I could potentially blind call and put that deer to my upwind side. So going from early season, family groups, bachelor groups, soft calling, inviting, as the season progresses here into the latter part of October into November, I find that sign that says start picking up my volume, start calling more often. Now, when I say start calling more often, you don't want to have a missed opportunity. So when I blind call into an area, it's every 5 minutes, 10 minutes max. And I want that deer that is traveling, looking for a doe, I want to be the first one that it hears. I don't want a missed opportunity and maybe call every 30 minutes because there's 28 minutes in between that there's a possibility that deer would not hear me. So if they hear me, I want to have the confidence that they heard me and they're going to come in on the approach. I don't want to leave too much time in between. Now, as the season progresses out of early season, and now we're like peak rut. Now we're at the downhill cycle of that bell curve of whitetail breeding. So as soon as we get later into the season, I'm going to go back to the beginning, the before and the after, and now we have that rekindling of those family doe groups. I've had so much luck late season vocally communicating with a doe bleat. I've had great luck with a doe bleat during the rut. Typically only use my doe bleat during the rut when I have eyes on a buck. When I actually have eye contact to manipulate the deer from point A to point B. I've had a lot of luck with that, with the doe bleat and the grunt tube. I'm trying to paint a different audible picture during peak rut phase, peak whitetail breeding. As the season progresses into late season, we have that rekindling of those family groups coming back together. You have those family groups of doe reestablishing family group, and your buck groups are starting to bachelor back up a little bit, little by little. Now, late season, vocally communicating more as doe family groups. And I also like to stress that because that time of year, I know I do, and I suspect a lot of other hunters do, filling those late season tags. So if I don't have a buck to go after and I'm just targeting does, a lot more doe bleats, a lot more friendly, inviting. And I said this in another video, when we're using a doe bleat, it's not bleat. We're not trying to communicate that sound of bleat, it's blat, B-L-A-T. So this is also another call that I saw on my website. This is my doe bleat grunt tube, available at rushcustomcallers.com. Link is in the description. So we don't want to vocalize bleat, we want to vocalize blat, B-L-A-T, the most appropriate vocalization for a doe. Not long, short syllables. Blat. So this call, I try my best to tune it to my ear for not your juvenile fawn, your sexually mature 70-pound, that year's fawn, juvenile doe. I don't want to sound like that big bee of a monarch doe. I want to sound as inviting as possible. Similar to my buck grunt tubes. I want to sound sexually mature, but I also want to sound inviting where I can still get my butt kicked. So those are the 3 phases and steps of progression of my calling through a whitetail season. Early season, family groups, more aggressive during the peak rut when all that action is happening, and now I'm communicating to that aspect for that buck. I want to hear him, I want to be aggressive, I want to sound like I can still get my butt kicked though. And then on the downhill cycle, we have that reestablishment of family groups with those doe herds coming back together, those family groups being reestablished, and I'll communicate to that aspect.